I think that the torture was put under the label of postpartum depression and anxiety, right? So I struggled greatly with being able to sleep at all. I went weeks and weeks and weeks just seeing the sun come up every morning and crying and feeling that devastation that I had to face another day with him and with a
Yeah.
newborn and doing everything by myself
Yeah.
with no sleep.
Welcome to the That's Where I'm At podcast. I'm Laura, happily divorced after spending years with a narcissist. I believe keeping secrets will make you sick and that they always come to light in the end. As women, we're often told to be quiet, don't share your story, don't talk about the things we go through. It's making women sick, sad, and suicidal. We don't have to be on the other side to share our story. This show is for the women still in the middle of the mess, but showing up bravely as they heal. It's time to share these stories with each other so we can learn, grow, and heal together. I'm Laura, and that's where I'm at. Please take note that this episode may contain subjects that may be triggering to certain listeners. Please take care when listening today. Hi, guys, and welcome back to the That's Where I'm At podcast. Today, I have Liberty Steele. Liberty Steele thought she was getting into a Christian marriage, but ended up spending 6 years of torment with a narcissistic abuser. She was able to find freedom, healing, and a healthy marriage, and now shares her story of hope so others do not feel alone in her book, Redeemed Years from Narcissistic Darkness to Light. Liberty, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Good. I'm so glad. Okay. Liberty, tell me how you got into talking about this, because I know the feeling of being with someone, right? You are in this marriage. You're like, wait a second. What happened? What just happened here? And then you have this need to tell your story. Tell me why you decided to do that, and then take us back to the time when you guys were together.
Yeah. Well, I started feeling the need to tell the story, I think, because I was around so many others who had been through a similar situation. And it was such an isolating experience for me and for them. You don't
Yeah.
feel quite safe sharing it in your church community, and you're not sure who, after you get divorced or separated, is going to accept you or support you.
Yeah.
And so all along the way, while you're in the abuse and when you're getting out of the abuse, you're not sure who you can talk to about it and who's safe, right? And so
Yeah.
it's just a very isolating time when you're in the relationship and when you're out of the
Yeah.
relationship. And I wanted people to feel like they weren't alone in the experience, and
Right.
that there were others that they could turn to who understood the experience and what they'd been through. So that's kind of how I got into,
Yeah, that's
creating a
amazing.
website and
Yeah.
eventually writing a book. So,
I
yeah.
want to ask you about your experience. So I know what I did after I'm a woman of faith, though I'm not as involved as I was. So when I first got out of my marriage, I did go to a divorce group that was in a church. And I felt to the point where I actually contacted the national organization afterwards and said, "Oh my gosh, you guys are woefully unprepared for abuse." Because we're talking about reconciliation and things like that. And it was really disheartening. The 15 of us that were sitting in that divorce group had all been in abuse. And so we know that divorce in the past, right? Whatever, it was just like, oh, everyone just gets divorced for irreconcilable differences or something. And that was a struggle. So tell me, did you go through anything like that? And what were you hearing from people in the church? I'll tell you what I heard as well.
Yeah, that was probably the most difficult part. Was the only people you feel like you can turn to for support are often your church leaders or
Hmm.
counselors.
Hmm.
And in our case, we had an elderly couple who meant well. They had been married 50 some years, and they were our marriage counselors from our
Yeah.
church. But the assumption is that you will never have a good enough biblical reason to get divorced,
Yes.
or maybe get separated, maybe call the cops on them if they're getting too abusive,
Yeah.
but you never have a biblical enough reason to get divorced. And so I would, drive to their house in the middle of the night when he had locked me out for not coming home on time. And they would say sorry and let me sleep there and send me home the next morning to reconcile
To
with him.
reconcile. Right. And we know that that is so dangerous. Even, I don't know if you were in physical danger or physical abuse. Were you in physical abuse at all?
It was more subtle. It was more like
Yeah.
randomly biting me to throw me off guard or
Okay.
randomly spanking me when I was trying to cook, things like that, that I made it clear I didn't want. And I put a
Yeah.
boundary there and it was crossed intentionally. So,
Yes. And so, well, what I was going to say about that was, unless we're hit, right? Many people
mhm,
are like, well, then you don't have a reason. And so we will discuss it during this because I even
mhm.
have resources on my website. There are biblical reasons to get
Yes.
divorced. And so,
Yes, there are.
and there are resources for you on the website, and Liberty is saying the same thing. So, there are biblical reasons. We tend to use the scripture of God hates divorce, and we use that like a sword. And it's like, too bad, this is it. You're stuck here forever. And that's not true. So, and
Yep.
so that's a shame. Even
Even
though,
that scripture is misconstrued
yes, it
because if
is.
you really look into that scripture, it's
Yes,
talking about God not wanting a man to treat his wife the wrong way.
exactly. And they were divorcing their wives over nonsense. We'll just
Right.
call it nonsense. And so that was the directive was God hates divorce. Stop divorcing your wife over nonsense,
Frivolous
over
men who were
frivolously.
being mistreating their wives. Yeah.
Yeah, which is so ironic that we use that scripture is used. And it's like, have you guys read the whole thing? That to me was an eye opener too.
Yeah.
When I was in that divorce group that I was telling you about, I feel like, I mean, they weren't really angels, but that's how I feel. You know how when the right people just come into your life and you're like,
Yes.
I needed to hear this thing right now. And I
Yes.
was saying something to someone, and one of the guys in the group said, "Oh my gosh, you have to meet my friend so and so." And so I met her, and I only knew her for a very short time. But I have to tell you, she said, these people they are Christians and they're psychologists and they're speakers, and they are speaking on this subject. And I was like, oh my God, really? Because, like I was telling you, I had such a hard time in that group, and so did so many other people. And then to hear other Christians talking in a different way, saying, yes, there are biblical reasons, and these are the reasons, and this is abuse and stuff like that, was
Hmm.
not what I was getting. So anyway,
Right.
I just wanted to say that because sometimes we get in the wrong groups. That's why I always talk about being in the right group and whatever feels right and is going along with your values. Yeah. And making sure it's trauma informed
Mhm.
for
And
sure.
that's a huge part of why I wanted the book out there in the first place was I feel like there's not enough resources for
Yeah.
the church community who are
Yeah.
dealing with this problem. They really don't know where to turn. They feel alone. They feel embarrassed to even be contemplating giving up on their marriage, right?
Right.
So
Yes.
the more resources from someone who's been there and
Yes.
can validate that there are biblical reasons for this and look at it through a different lens than just the
Yeah.
limited one like you're talking about.
That's really great. I also have another resource, and I was one of the women that actually was part of the curriculum for the divorce group is Leslie Vernick. I don't know if you know her.
Oh
So
yes.
she's an
Yeah.
amazing, she's amazing. She speaks on abuse. She's a Christian psychologist. Amazing.
She's one of the first resources I saw
I
that
love that. Me
contradicted, yeah,
too. Oh my gosh.
contradicted what I had heard. So,
Yes. Oh my gosh. Me too. And listen,
yeah.
when I talked to the national organization, I said to them, you have Leslie Vernick at your fingertips. She's
Hmm.
literally in your curriculum. Why you're not
Hmm.
listening to her is beyond me because
Hmm.
they weren't using those parts. So, one of her podcast episodes, which I have linked, it talks about she had a pastor on her podcast. And I just want to talk about this because I think it would be a good resource for people. So she had a pastor on her podcast, and I listened to this episode. My friend told me you should listen to this episode. So this pastor goes around speaking to other pastors because he actually had a woman come into his office and, to counsel her, right? And say, like, my husband, there's something wrong. I'm not sure. I don't think she was in physical abuse. And it's like, there's something wrong. I'm not sure. So he had the counseling and had them reconcile. And the husband also got him alone and was very manipulative. Now that we're looking at it in hindsight, okay, he's a psychopath. And then he ends up murdering her.
Of course, yeah. Because it escalates from, oh,
Yes.
there's nothing physical to, oh, it's very controlling. And then all of a sudden she tries to get some space and it
Yeah.
turns lethal. It's not
Yeah.
uncommon at all, right? And of those churched women, I'm saying women, but there's men also, of
Yes.
course, who are
Right.
who are victimized.
But we
But
know that the
of
majority, and listen, we know the majority of abusers are men, and the a majority of people who are abused are women. So we're going to be okay with saying that, and then everyone
yeah,
else can stick the information, but we are going with the majority because those are the statistics. So it's okay for you to say
okay.
that.
So
Yeah.
1 in 4 is a very moderate
Yeah.
estimate, right? 1 in 3 is probably more realistic of the women who are sitting in a church pew,
Yes.
suffering abuse in their home
Yes.
and not telling anybody or not getting help.
And I want to talk about that statistic because, like you said, it's probably 1 in 3. Because listen, I was in abuse and I didn't know I was. And I
Right.
was sitting in a church, right?
Yeah.
And also, we have to think about the women who are not being counseled the way they should be, right?
Right.
Because they're going to their pastor and they're saying, like you had, well, sorry, go back home and reconcile.
Mhm.
And so maybe they don't even know they're in abuse because listen, I didn't know what
No.
was going on. I just knew my husband was a jerk and I didn't want to be alive. Did I know
Yep.
that was abuse? No, I did not know that was abuse
Exactly.
until the very end. Yeah. So what about you? You spent 6 years with your ex. Okay, so tell me, where did you guys meet?
So I was getting close to 30. I was thinking, where is this Christian husband, right? And
Yes.
I was going on some of the websites. So thinking, there'll be good Christian guys on there that I can vet, so to speak, go
Yes.
through their profiles, make sure we match up, right?
Uh-huh. Of
And not ever having the concept of a narcissistic person and that
course
they
not.
will mirror or present exactly what you want to hear.
Yes.
So very calculated, right? But you don't think that kind of person exists. So I went on Christian Mingle. This was in 2010, 2011,
Mhm.
and started chatting with him there. And he was a few states away, but there were flowers in a vase that first week that we started talking, showed up at my doorstep, right?
Yeah.
He was planning to fly out and meet me from several states away. That happened
Wait,
within the first.
oh, okay. I was going to ask you how long,
Yeah, the
how
planning
quickly.
started. He showed up within about 5 weeks, I think, something
Wow.
like that, of us
Wow.
video chatting and things like that. So
Yeah.
that's how we met.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so that is our red flag for you guys. That was love bombing. The sad part is, right? The flowers in a vase doesn't sound bad, right? That doesn't
Everybody
sound,
wants it, right?
everybody wants it. There's nothing wrong with that, but just remember we don't have to rush, accept it, and don't let it fill your validation,
Hmm.
whatever. That
Yeah.
part of you that needs that external validation, yes, love it, enjoy it. It's
And the
hard. It's so
planning that goes along with it, the future talk, the future faking
faking.
is
Yes.
very meaningful to someone who's thinking, okay, I'm pushing 30. I've been saving myself. I still need to get married.
Yeah.
And he can see a future with me. He's already describing me moving out to Oklahoma and setting up house
Mm.
and what our lives would look like when I help take care of his children.
Oh my gosh. Oh no.
Which again is another narcissistic pattern where they
Yes.
like to, you know, get the new person to come in, then
Yes.
they resume visits with their children because you can take care of them now,
Yes.
and you'll look good to other people and to your ex.
And yes, yes, exactly. And the narcissist will look good, right? Because they have this wonderful person who's taking care of his children. Yes. Okay. Oh my gosh, that is so good for you to have told us all that. So, okay. So then did he come out? You said he came out in 5 weeks or whatever. He came out to visit you. Okay. And how
Hmm.
did that go? And was he future faking you before that?
Yeah. All leading up to that, most of our video conversations and phone conversations were very future focused.
Yeah.
And then this in-person meeting about 5 weeks or so in was almost just to confirm, to validate what we already knew together, that we
That you
had a
guys,
future together.
yeah, that you guys really had a connection. And yes, of course you did.
But
Do
to
you?
me, I wasn't listening to my gut, my Holy Spirit discretion, because
Okay.
he went to hold my hand right away and I felt kind of weird, but I just kind of went with it. And then he went to kiss me our first night together, our first dinner together,
Yeah.
and really kiss me. And I was a very conservative girl and I was just
Yeah.
kind of letting it happen, like, oh, I guess this is a good thing. But I felt kind of funny. I was like. Like the assumption that he knows me really, really well was
Yeah.
already there and that
Yeah.
I would be fine with him doing those things. He wasn't checking with me or anything. He
Wow.
was just plowing forward, kind of, if that makes sense.
It does. And so, I mean, that's good. You said you had to check in your spirit,
Hmm.
really, because were those values something you had? You're like, I don't know that I want to rush into that first kiss right away. I don't know if I want to rush, even the holding hands. Talk to me a little bit about that. Was that something you just even wanted to slow the whole process down?
Yeah, because I kind of had that sense of like, we've never actually been around each other in person.
Yeah.
So I felt like there should be some sensitivity to that, maybe.
Yeah.
Like at least just kind of checking in with me. Hey, are you cool with us, having affection right now? Because all we've been doing is talking on the phone and video
Right.
chatting up to that point.
Right.
So it felt like it's a very, very subtle thing for you to sense that they're barely crossing your boundaries. They're barely encroaching on things that they want to control
Yeah.
their way, but you are still too early in the process to speak up for yourself and to say, wait, I'm not comfortable with this.
Yeah. Because
You don't
it
know them very
almost
well.
seemed, yeah. And did he ever say anything like, well, we've been together, like we know we want to be together? Because did you ever say anything or did you act like you were uncomfortable or anything, maybe pull away or anything? Did he ever say anything? Well, we've been together. Because I heard that from my ex when we got together. He's like, well, we've been friends for years, so we can just like get married. We don't have to have a engagement. So we did, which is a very
Like
narcissistic thing to
rushing
do.
of
Yes, it's a
you. Yeah.
yes, rushing is always part of it, and you
Yep.
may not look like you had gut checks, so that's something that we should be listening to. But sometimes if we don't even like have any,
Yes, you don't really trust your own instincts
yeah,
about things,
yes,
especially if you've
exactly.
grown up in an environment or
Yeah,
something where there's trauma or
yeah,
you're taught to kind of doubt yourself and your own
right.
perceptions and rely on others.
Yes, exactly. And so when we don't have our own internal validation, or even because even you had a relationship with God, right? You felt like you had this relationship with God. So you
Mhm.
knew you're like, I'm getting these checks, but I'm going to dismiss it. And that's so hard to me. I replaced the Holy Spirit with my ex's voice very
Yes.
quickly. I
Yes.
very quickly. Okay, you did that too then. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I thought I was being silly in a way. Like
Yeah.
maybe I was, this is what real relationships should be like. And this is what it's like when you're leading up to a marriage together and you're
Yeah.
both really serious and committed to it.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just being silly. That's kind of how I thought of it in the back of my mind.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing how we can gaslight ourselves?
Oh,
Like you totally gaslight yourself.
almost is it from society or is it from trying to be a good girl or a compliant, nice Christian girl?
Listen,
You
it's
kind
all
of
of
just
that. I
go with the
mean,
flow.
it's this, we are societal, women especially, right? We are societalized that
Yeah.
also that you do the X, Y, and Z, you do the right things, right? The quote
Yeah.
unquote right things. And then you were doing all the things you felt were right. You're like, I'm saving myself and I'm taking my time. I'm finding my husband and I'm gonna go on this Christian dating app and everything's gonna be great. And talk to me about, because the future faking doesn't happen without them knowing some things, right? Because
Yeah.
I had the same thing. Listen, I said I wanted to get married and have 3 kids, and oh my gosh, so did my ex. I mean, what a surprise. It's like we had the same hopes and dreams, and they are such copycatters.
Think I am by nature a very open, transparent, vulnerable person. And
Yeah,
so he could pick that up right away.
of
I
course.
wasn't hiding anything. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I laid it all out exactly my goals, my passions, my hopes and dreams. he was there for the taking and he was cherry picking it for his purposes. So yeah,
Yeah. It's heartbreaking, right? I mean, it's really heartbreaking. So, okay, so then how fast did you guys end up getting married?
I moved to his state. So I moved halfway across the country in the first 5 months.
Okay.
My mom cried buckets as
Oh,
I drove out with the little U-Haul.
oh,
She knew something was wrong with him,
oh,
and I would
she
listen to her.
did. Oh,
She knew.
she did. Did she say something? She's like, I just don't know what something's off or what. What did she say to you?
She was trying to be nice, but she was very, I don't
Yeah.
know, like she's an empath type person, so she
Yeah.
can sense a lot of things. And she just said, I don't think this is the right fit for you,
Mhm.
kind of. That was kind of her comments because he'd been married before. He already had kids, he already had baggage. He had
Yeah.
a lot of things going on. And
Yeah.
even for me to ignore the fact that he had two ex-wives and he had kids from both of them,
Okay. Yeah. Well,
I was very much wishful thinking that this was the right person for
of
me, you
course
know.
you were. Of course. You did all the right things. And then you're like, this is it. This is the everything I've ever wanted because that's how he sold himself to you, because
He's
that's what they
portraying that.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they do. When you moved across the country to be with him, did you compromise your values? I'm just asking in that way. Did you compromise your values in any way? Do you feel like you did something that you shouldn't have done? Do you know what I'm
You mean
saying?
as far as like my moral values? No,
Yes. Okay.
I was very clear from the get-go that I was going to wait for marriage,
Hmm.
and he was very convincing that that was fine with him, right? He
Okay.
was fine with that.
Okay.
So he sold me on the idea that we were on the same page about that. I got my
Okay.
own apartment. I had my own space and all that.
Okay. Okay.
So I was just there basically in the same town as him so that we could go to premarital counseling together
Yeah.
and get to know each other well enough to actually get married eventually.
Okay.
So yeah.
And then when did you guys end up getting married?
So the premarital counseling period was at least 10, 11 months.
Wow. Wait, was that
Yeah,
just, was that normal for the premier?
no, no, because there were issues that needed addressed.
Wait, were there issues by the counselors?
Well, they recognized our challenges were significant, and I think they wanted to take us through some more coursework and things like that.
Oh, interesting.
But
Okay.
I also I had a few big flags where I had to like, let's
Really?
reconsider. So,
Okay, so talk to me about that in case people want to know like what
mhm.
kinds of things you saw.
Yeah, yes, his temper started to kind of escalate a little bit, and
Oh,
so there were times when I couldn't tell if it was his military injury
mm,
or something else, abusive, right? Because I
right.
didn't know what that was at the time. So I
Yeah.
just thought, and my counselors kind of thought, it must be a brain injury or PTSD or something like that. That must
Okay.
be what's going on here. And if we can get him the right resources and help, he can
Mm,
improve. And he gave them all the lip service that he did want to improve, that he did want to implement all these biblical
yeah.
strategies and values and everything that he learned in counseling. And they believed his lip service. So we kept going. So,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, because they will say anything and they will totally gaslight or manipulate the counselors too, like that, just saying whatever needs to be said to keep going. To me, it's so fascinating. It's like I always ask myself, why do they want to get married? But it's like the ultimate narcissistic prize.
why?
It's the prize. Like
Yep.
that they can get somebody locked down. Well, the actual prize is like getting you pregnant. That's the big prize, if you
True.
can. But
Yeah.
man, I never understand that. I'm like, for as much as they really hate women or their partners, I mean, seriously, the way they seem to hate them, like, why do you want to get married? Like,
They're
what's
not
the point?
there to give to anyone else. They're there to take what they need and want.
Yes.
So it's all about supply.
It is. And so with you saying, look, I want to wait till marriage and all that,
Hmm.
he had to jump through the hoops
Hmm.
to get to that. The only reason I asked you about compromising your moral values is because I was interested to know if he manipulated you in that way. And so
Yeah.
congratulations. But I
I
mean,
mean, there were little ways. There were little ways.
yeah,
Like, for example, if he couldn't go all the way with me,
yeah.
then he would convince me that I should like touch him and learn how to do
Oh,
that or something, that
okay.
sort of thing. So
Yeah,
he was kind of gradually like seeing what he could push past, what he could get away with.
of
And
course.
then he proposed about, let's see, 6, 7 months after we met. And I was living there in my own apartment. We were
Okay.
watching a movie. He proposed. Oh, so romantic. It was a romantic movie. So he proposed afterwards. And I was kind of like, seems kind of soon. We just like did barely any premarital counseling at this point, but
Yeah.
okay. Like maybe we can just say yes and then keep working on stuff. And he did the bait and switch where we went to our counseling session after that. They recommended he make double sure that he was done with his ex-wife because he had 2 daughters with her. So
Okay.
he needed to go back and make sure prayerfully before the Lord that there was nothing left with his ex-wife. So this made me,
Oh,
pretty uncomfortable, but I went with it. I was like, okay, let's just make sure before we proceed. Come to
yes.
find out later, he's using that time not to stand still before the Lord, but to go back and try to get in with his ex-wife in her bed, basically, during this time.
Wow. Oh
Well,
my.
the girls need help. She needs help with the girls, and I need to go check on them and make sure that she's good. But if he can't get what he wants from me, he's gonna go see if
Yes.
there's somewhere else that can supply him with
A
that the time.
exactly. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the class that I had taken, the group I would that divorce group, that was one of the things which I'd never heard of this, and I don't even know if it's biblical, because I don't understand that. That is what was in the divorce group as well. They showed us a video about a couple that were going to be on their second marriage, and they each went to the other one's past partner to ask if there was anything left and
Yeah.
could they marry them. I'm like, I was dumbfounded. I'm like, where is that biblical?
There
That doesn't
any
even,
chance to save something that's already done?
it
I
doesn't,
don't
and
know.
all for
But to
this.
him, it was an opportunity to,
Exactly. Yes,
yeah,
exactly. Sorry, we might not be on the same page of the way we're thinking that way, because I have a lot of issues with some of well, you know what I have an issue with? Religiosity. That's what I have an issue with. When we get into religiosity and we're making rules willy-nilly, because what I felt during that video was like the whole point of that was because you think that the first marriage is the only marriage that's really biblical, or
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
wholly under God's eye. Like that's how I felt. So like
right.
the second, you shouldn't be having a second marriage. That's how I felt. That could be my own
Yeah,
interpretation of that. That's
there's a
how I
whole kettle of fish. And I don't know if we should get into all of
no.
them, but yeah, it's like, I don't. Another really good one is Patrick Weaver. If you see his
Okay. Oh
resources,
yes, I have. Yes, he's
yeah,
really good. Yeah. I haven't put his resources in, but since we're talking about it now, I will. Yes,
because
he's really good. Yes, I enjoy him. For
it's
sure.
very biblical. He does his research, but
Yes.
there's questions a lot of people have about the remarriage part of it, and that's why I really appreciate his research. So yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay, so talk to me about, so you guys got married. How was that? And was your mom still concerned?
Yes, it was a whole thing to even get my family to come to the wedding. They
Oh,
were gracious enough, most of them, to come.
okay.
And while she was doing the dance with him, she apologized to him for thinking wrongly of him and having the wrong ideas about him, etc. So
Wait,
that's,
did he know that she thought poorly of him before that time?
I think so. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I did refer to it a little bit because it was a whole drama at the time. So.
Okay. So then when you guys got married, okay, so how was the wedding then compared to
Mhm.
now we're starting to get into the marriage? Did anything happen? Like, did anything start happening even on the honeymoon?
Yeah. Oh goodness. We were on.
Whatever you feel comfortable talking about.
Yeah, basically, we were on a long plane ride to go to the Caribbean the next
Mhm.
day after the wedding. And I blocked out so many of the things that he got mad about, right? Because I don't even remember all of the
Yeah,
reasons he would get mad. But
right.
something on the plane set him off, or he chose to be set off by it. Probably
Yes.
his meal was wrong, or I
Yeah.
forgot his favorite slippers, or who knows. And he just lit into me, on the plane ride. So we were almost to the Caribbean, to this amazing island, amazing hotel. And I spent the first 2, 3 hours in the hotel in the bathtub sobbing, just weeping,
Oh,
because I thought this is so, so bad. Like, I've never been treated with this kind of cruelty. And this
yeah.
person just promised to love me my whole
Right.
life.
Right. Exactly. And so was that the most you had seen his anger escalate at that time?
Well, the flag one of the big flags I was referring to, why counseling took so long, the premarital counseling,
Yeah.
was July. We had adopted a dog together, and we were keeping it in his house.
Okay.
And while we took the girls out somewhere, it broke out of the neighborhood and bit another dog.
Oh,
So when we got back, that was my fault. And he
yes.
started yelling at me and raging at me. And I sent the girls to their room to play because I recognized what was going on.
Wow.
And I said, look, I'm sorry this happened. I don't really think it was directly my fault, but we'll
Yeah.
figure out what to do.
Right.
And I just started sobbing. I put the dog in the car and I drove to this neighbor's who had offered to keep it previously.
Okay.
And I was apologizing to the dog. I'm so sorry. We can't keep you. We can't keep you. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. And gave him to the neighbor. So after this whole exchange, it was like the night before my birthday or something. And I told him I needed a couple days, and I told the counselors I needed a couple of days, and they
Mhm.
agreed, that we should both be separate, we should pray, we should figure out what we really want to do. Do we want to move
Mhm.
forward or not? And I came out from work the night leading up to my birthday, and he had decorated a big vase with all these stickers and stuff, and had all these flowers in there, and had a whole scavenger hunt around the city for me to do on my birthday, with
Okay.
clues to my favorite coffee place and to get a new outfit and my hair done and
Okay.
all of this for my birthday. And so I said, well, let's sit down with the counselors, let's talk about
Mhm.
stuff. Let's figure
Right.
out if he's actually repentant or not for this
Right.
huge rage that he unleashed on me for no reason, basically.
Right. Right.
And he was so repentant, and he was never going to act like that again. And he was a different person when he was sitting there with our marriage counselors. So I said, well, I've got to be a good Christian and give him a chance to
Yeah.
show me that he's repented, that he's actually going to be different now. And we were married 4 months later, I think. So,
And he
yeah.
didn't rage in between that time, the 4 months or whatever.
I think he was pretty good. He
Yeah.
was pretty well behaved. Like, he could
Okay.
control it a little bit. Yeah.
And unfortunately, the statistic, well, it's very common. Let me say that it's very common that things happen on the honeymoon.
Yes.
That it's very common. Like you're married and there it is. Like now they're
Yeah.
like, I can now take the mask off and I can be who I truly am. And you're locked
Yeah.
down. Too bad for you. You
Yep.
know.
Yep.
Okay, so you spent a couple, 2, 3 days sobbing. So talk to me about the rest of the time.
Oh, the honeymoon? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was crying in the bathtub. I was asking God, what was going on? How could this person who just promised to love me my whole life treat
Yeah.
me like he hated me? He just
Right.
hated me. And there was no other way to describe it, because your mind can't reconcile. It's that cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
He says he really loves me. He really loves me. Wait, he's screaming and yelling at me and calling me names for something I couldn't even control. Doesn't make any sense, right?
Right.
So I did my best to go on, enjoy the honeymoon. And that's kind of when the cycle of forgive and move on and forget just kind of started. I think at that point
Yeah.
I was just deciding it's going to be hard. I know it's going to be hard. He has his issues. He has this brain injury, PTSD, whatever. So it's going to be hard. Fine. I can do hard things. Let me set out to prove that I can do hard things by
Oh,
staying with this
jeez.
cruel, awful, tormenting person, and
Oh
I
my
just started doing
gosh.
that every time we would fight, or I would get blamed for something that made no sense or whatever.
Yeah.
I would figure out how to reconcile and move on and ask God to make me forget. And for the most part, I've forgotten most of the details.
Yeah, for sure. And I can so resonate with all of that. I really can, because that's how we end up. Well, we end up in the trauma bond really super fast because your abuser is also your soother. So you
Yes.
you wouldn't have stayed for as long as you did because every single day, every hour of the day was bad. There were the good times put in there,
Little
and that
breadcrumbs.
yes, exactly. And so the hope and breadcrumbs keeps us trauma bonded because our abuser is also our soother. That's how I stayed 33 years. It's because I also
Amazing.
like his parents are still together. My parents were together until my mom passed away, 60 years. So it's like, why would I think anything else, right?
Yeah.
I grew up with you get married and this is what you do forever.
Yeah.
Not knowing that I probably should have been taught like how not to compromise myself and red flags and stuff like that. But did we even talk about that?
No.
I'm Gen X. We didn't talk about
Didn't
that
talk
stuff.
about anything meaningful. Yeah.
No, if you weren't being hit, it wasn't abuse. And so there wasn't really a discussion. We don't have the
Mm-mm.
language. We don't have the language that we have now, right?
Mm-mm.
We don't have the language. We don't have these conversations for sure. Like I never had these kind of conversations. So
Mm-mm.
tell me about the 6 years, the time you guys spent together.
Yeah. I think I went into that first year, like I said, just kind of expecting it to be hard.
Yeah.
And you have people tell you, oh, the first year is really hard. The first year of marriage is really difficult.
Right.
So my expectation was like, okay, I can do hard things. He already has issues. He has a lot of baggage. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this hard thing.
Yeah.
Well, the first year was beyond any normal definition of hard. It
Right.
was, oh, okay, we're newlyweds, but I refuse to hug you anymore because you expect it. Or I refuse to hold the doors open for you anymore because you expect it.
Yep.
Or let me just stop talking to you for 2 weeks because you did something that pissed me off a little bit. So now I'm going to leave you to grovel and figure out
Yeah.
what you can fix to make me talk to you again.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and people just don't realize that that's so abusive, the silent treatment. The My ex used to say to me all the time, like, you know what you did. And I'd be like, I don't know what I did. Like, tell me what I did so that I can fix it. Because of course I was like desperate to fix anything, right?
Yep.
And he would say, well, if you don't realize what you did, you probably should have some more introspection. You should really
Mm.
think about, then you should really figure out what you did. And I'm just like,
Hmm.
just freaking tell me.
Just tell me,
It just,
communicate.
but really, but really, all that was said to manipulate and to gaslight and
Yes.
to make you unstable because gaslighting, the whole thing of the narcissist is we're causing
Yeah.
chaos and confusion.
Yep.
So that whole thing, whether I did something wrong or not, quote unquote wrong in his eyes or not, he was going to make me sit and think about it because
Hmm.
that was causing chaos and confusion. Yeah. And for you to go, like you said, grovel, totally understand that. I would do anything
Yeah.
to please just talk to me. Like,
Yeah. I was in one of those periods of the silent treatment, trying to
yeah.
figure out what I could do, and I would sleep in a guest room so that it wasn't so uncomfortable. And
Mm.
I remember one of the most uncomfortable situations was there was an older Asian man in our apartment complex, and he had been kind of looking at me sometimes, right?
Mm.
And then I hit his car.
Oh, shoot.
I hit the back bumper by accident, like barely tapped it, got out, apologized, didn't have my windshield wiped from the frost or whatever it was. So it was very uncomfortable. So I told my husband at the time, oh, I had this interchange with this guy. I think he's kind of mad,
Yeah.
whatever. Well, during this period of the silent treatment, I was outside crying. I was outside sitting against a tree in our apartment complex crying. And that older Asian man came up to me and was offering me cookies and stuff and telling me that I was attractive.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I was very uncomfortable. And your first thought is, I need my husband to help me out. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want this situation. And I need to go tell him so he can help me get out
Right.
of this situation or pound the guy or whatever. No,
Right.
that's not going to happen with a
No,
narcissistic person, right?
no.
Can you predict how he responded?
That you're okay. Did he accuse you of cheating?
It's basically my fault, right? It's
Yes.
basically my fault.
You were
Yeah.
doing something to attract the attention.
Yeah,
probably.
and I need to deal with it myself, basically. He's not going to step up for
Oh,
me, you know?
yes.
So
Okay.
not only are we already in this period of silent treatment where I'm trying to win back into his good graces, but I'm getting hit on by creepy old men, and my
Yeah.
husband is not only not defending me, but he's also making it my fault and making
Yeah.
me deal with it myself. It was just the most confusing
Right.
cognitive dissonance, gaslighting, all the
Yeah.
things swirling around in there where I just wanted to crumple up in a little ball and like die, you know?
And that's the whole point, right? Is your self-esteem needs to
Yeah.
be they're chipping away at your self-esteem. And then because for him to be like, no, you're not even important enough for me to go out there and
Go
talk to this.
defend.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
defend you. I would
Yeah.
always say that to my ex. I'd be like, why don't you fight for me? He goes, you know, I don't like to fight. And I'm like, is this your first day speaking English? Because like that word fight, like when you fight for something, you're not in a physical altercation, you ding dong, but
Hmm.
that's what he would do
Hmm.
to cause me to have to. Now we're having a fight over semantics, which was
Hmm.
always fun. Now we're having a semantics fight. And I'd be like, no, I want you to fight for me, like be on my side and fight for me. I don't fight.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's been lovely talking to you. Everything. And all it did was make me feel worthless. It really
Yeah.
did.
Really worthless. Yeah. Like, how far would you go in your situation to reconcile?
Right. I mean,
Like, I'm wondering in your situation, because in my
okay.
situation, I would do whatever it took pretty much to
Any,
reconcile.
oh, for sure. No, I did. Yes, I did
Hmm.
lots of things.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I did just about anything. And listen, I have interviewed people on this show that they talk about what they've done and
Okay.
that they compromise themselves. And that's the thing is, to me, it wasn't a compromise at the time, right? Because to me, it was, I have to fix this. And that's the mode I
Yes.
was in. The mode was fix it at all costs because he's obviously mad at me. And listen, I have friends who, like, we've talked over the years that have said, like, well, did you say anything to him? I'm like, no, because I was in abuse. I wasn't going to say one word because I didn't want him mad at me. I didn't want him to leave me. All those things, all the things that ended up happening anyway. But
The expectation was, like, from our biblical counselors, as
yeah,
much as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone, especially your spouse. So whatever
right.
you can do to bring
Yeah.
back the peace and unification, you better
Yes.
do it. So I'll give the example because
Yeah.
I don't think the way it was handled by the church counselors was appropriate or
Okay.
helpful.
Yeah.
But for me to come to them and say, I was willing to reconcile. I wanted to talk to him and work it out. And I
Okay.
texted him that night from the guest room and said, can we work this out
Yeah.
finally after a week or so of being apart? And he said, show up at my door naked and blindfolded and don't say a word.
Right. Yeah.
And the rest you can imagine.
Yeah.
But I felt like trash,
Yeah.
and they were not okay with it. But they said, yeah, it's not okay. But of course, you need to forgive him. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, okay, but that's
And
not the point.
the conversations you're having, like with them, like, you need to do this, you need to do that. Are they having conversations with him about that's like not something you shouldn't be not talking to your wife for a week and then demanding she shows up naked at your door? Like, were they having those conversations with him? And
I don't know what they said when they were alone with him because sometimes they
okay,
had their own counseling sessions, but
okay,
I'm sure he would reassure them that he would do the biblical thing and be a
yes,
godly husband and all
yes,
that. He was great at talking that way. So,
yes, yeah. And there were times where especially the last couple of years, going to marriage counseling and my ex would be like, yes, I will do it. I was telling somebody yesterday, I'm like, he would say in the marriage counseling, yes, I'm going to do this, this, and this. We would get in the car and he'd be screaming at me, that I can't believe you talked about that and blah, blah, blah. And you're embarrassing. You embarrassed us. And it's like, we weren't even away from counseling for 5 minutes and you're already yelling at me and we already are starting over, and so nothing ever got fixed. That's why you're
no.
not, and I will say it again. I've said it on multiple episodes, but if you think you might be in abuse and some of these things sound familiar to you, you
Mhm.
should not go to counseling
Right.
because there is an imbalance of power and they will manipulate counselors like this,
Yes.
like your pastors. anything that they will, and they will say whatever they need to say, and also to make you look bad, to make them look good and to make you look bad.
Not an honest, authentic effort at improving the relationship.
No, it's not.
Mm-mm.
Because this is the thing. I mean, mine said it straight out, but this is the general thing. They don't think they're doing anything wrong.
Right.
You are being difficult by not just following the rules and shutting
Okay,
your
so
mouth.
and that's the religiosity that you were referring to
Yeah.
is steeped in patriarchy. And we have to realize that so much of what we've been taught in the church that is
Yes.
supposedly biblical
Yeah,
is man's ideas
it is.
of how to control women. Unfortunately, I don't want to sound like I'm not a feminist or anything like that. I'm just pointing out you need to sift through all the ideas that are
Yeah.
coming from your church and that
Yes.
they're saying are biblical and make sure that they're not just man's spin on things
Yes.
to be in control patriarch how do you say it patriarchally or whatever you say
Yeah,
like
no, it's
it's
so
so much of
true.
that going on is colored by all of that
It
so
is. Yeah,
and
no, there are books out there that if you want to see the way some churches don't allow women to teach and things like that, and there's a lot of information of like where along the way women, and it's not necessarily biblical, where women were taken out of the equation.
does it
And
glorify God to objectify anyone,
right,
man, woman, child? I don't
yes,
care who they are, green,
right,
black, purple. If you start treating them as an object
right,
versus the sacred creation that God has
yes,
made,
yes.
that's where you run into problems. And
Because
that's how I
really,
was treated, like in the story I was just telling,
yes, exactly. And the scripture of like, I don't have it handy, so I forget.
Mhm.
But the way the husband is supposed to love his
From
wife,
Ephesians,
like the church, right?
from Ephesians.
But okay, so what is that part of the scripture of for women? So the
Yeah.
point I'm trying to say is women are always told their part in that scripture. And
Yep.
it's like,
How
hello?
often do they remind the men?
Right. Can we tell the men their part? You're supposed to be doing it too. You're supposed to be loving your wife
If
the
you
way
love
Christ,
your wife as Christ
Christ
loved the
loves the
church,
church. There we
you
go.
are laying down your life for her. You are
Yes.
sacrificing for her. That is what real love is.
Right. It's not just get a submissive woman who will do everything for you and she better follow the rules. This is when you start getting into religiosity. And
Yeah.
so if you're hearing this and it sounds familiar, there's tons of resources. We'll add Patrick Weaver to the list as well. Not
Yeah.
to necessarily get a divorce. That's not what we're saying. But what we're saying
Yeah.
is when you're in abuse, the majority of the time, if an abuser is not going to change the majority of the time, okay? Because a lot of times they do not think they're doing anything wrong. They are intentionally doing these things. Please hear that because
Yeah.
they have choices. They don't abuse the like people at work. They're not
Mhm.
abusing whatever. They're not talking to the mailman like this, all those things, especially when you have a covert narcissist, which I'm assuming he kind of is, though. I mean, when he was getting mad at you on the plane, he wasn't like yelling and screaming like at you like that. It was more of a undercover sort of.
Publicly acceptable sort of
Yes,
way of berating me. Yeah.
got it. Yes, I had one of those too. Yes, I was often in
I
trouble,
always
and
felt
you,
safer, like at church or with church friends. I always
yeah,
felt safer because he would be nice to me around those people. So
isn't it so sad? Yeah,
I
I
would
was like,
rather spend time at my church friend's house because I knew I would be treated better.
yes. And it's so sad. And that's the thing I always say. It's like, that's why I didn't understand when we would go home and he'd say, like, everybody likes me but you. And I'd be like, what am I missing? What am I missing? Because then I'd think, like, well, when we're out of the house, look, he can do it. He's nice to me. He's nice to everybody around him. And then we go home and he's like right into the silent treatment. Like the way we would be making dinner, whatever, right? And then like watching TV. And then sometimes we'd be watching TV together or something doing whatever together, he'd literally get up, go in the bedroom, turn off the light, go to bed. And I'm like, hello? Am I a partner here? And I'd be like, are you sleeping? He's like, oh yeah, I'm going to bed. Like no kiss goodnight, no nothing. And this is the thing that sometimes people are like, oh, that's not a big deal. It is because it's a very intentional way to devalue you. You don't even
Disregard.
you
Yeah, you're
disregard
not
and
worth saying
devalue you.
goodnight to.
No, you're not even worth me kissing goodnight. You knew when you
No.
stood up and went in the bedroom what you were going to do. You were going to brush your teeth and go to bed. Like you knew that. and you didn't say anything because he would keep different hours than I would. Okay, you could have said something. And so this is the thing, it's like, this is what you don't understand. The subtle devaluing is how we get
Yep.
to the point where we go, I don't understand what's happening in my
Yeah.
life that I have to beg for love and affection. Okay, what was there a particular thing that happened, or was it a slow burn to get out, and how did that go?
Yeah. I think about, I want to say it was initiated by having a baby, which probably
Mm.
shouldn't be a surprise to you because, like you said, they like to have the child and then,
Yeah.
that was a feather in their cap. They can claim
Yes.
they're a good parent, whatever. But
Yes.
in my case, I think that the the torture was put under the label of postpartum depression and anxiety, right?
Yes.
So I struggled greatly with being able to sleep at all. I went weeks and weeks and weeks just seeing the sun come up every morning and crying and feeling that devastation that I had to face another day with him and with a
Yeah.
newborn and doing everything by myself
Yeah.
with no sleep.
Yeah.
And it started to just wear to the point where I couldn't ask for help. I couldn't tell anyone how bad he was treating me. I felt completely alone, not knowing what to do with my first baby,
Right.
having, feeding issues and sleep and
Hmm.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it finally got to the point where I went for my postpartum checkup. I think it was like 6 weeks or something. And I told her that I wasn't sleeping and that he was coming in and out at all hours of the night because he would go shoot pool, play darts, go to
Yeah.
the pubs, come in at 2 or 3 in the morning when I had barely just gotten, half an hour of sleep before
Yeah.
he started popping in and out, whatever.
Yeah.
And so she actually wrote on a prescription pad to him to give me the bed to myself.
Oh my
So that
God.
was a step in the right direction, right?
And this is the sad part, is that they do that abuse of not letting you sleep.
Deprivation.
Yeah,
Yep.
sleep deprivation. Yeah, any of those
Hmm.
things. I've heard that from so many people. Like, there's multiple bathrooms in the house, and right now they might be separated or sleeping in different bedrooms for whatever reason, and they intentionally come into the master bedroom bathroom to go, rather
Sure.
than there's the bathroom right there in the hallway, but intentionally to like turn on the lights and make noise. And it's like,
Yeah.
people just don't get it. I interviewed somebody who actually was a pastor's wife, and she was going to be doing VBS the next day. And so she had prepared and whatever. So she was sleeping on the couch. I don't remember why, but she was sleeping separate, maybe because she had to get up really early, or she stayed up late planning something. Oh no, he was keeping her up all night. And he was the pastor, right? Keeping
Mhm.
her up all night, flipping on lights, pulling the covers off of her. And I said, and you walked into church the next day and you didn't say a word. She goes, what was I going to say? Who was going to
Right.
believe me that the
Yeah.
pastor was abusing me? She says, I said not one word, nothing.
It even sounds crazy when you try to think of how do I describe this kind of torture to other people.
Right,
You can't really, you don't know how to describe it to other people in a way that they would think it was actually believable.
right.
Like,
Because,
why would someone be that calculated to torment someone else that much?
yeah. And that's the thing, is they know, and they do. They're very calculated. They're very strategic. Okay. So we're getting into the last few minutes. So I'm sorry to have to wrap this up because I feel like I can
Yeah.
talk to you forever. So I guess you'll have to do a longer episode somewhere, and we'll direct them over there. Where you'll have to tell your story, longer parts of the story, but people can reach out to you if they want to hear more of your
Yeah.
story. And if they want to, I have everything in the show notes for you guys. And of course, follow her on Instagram, and then pick up her book. So tell me
Mhm.
about, we'll have to fast forward to your book. So tell
Yes.
me when you decided to write your book, and what do you talk about in there to give people hope?
Yeah. So I was working on the book because an author friend had encouraged me. She said, you have to put your story down for people who need to hear it,
I
need
love
to
it.
know what to do. And so I was working on my book for about the last year or so, just kind of putting down the main events and then making the last half of the book more of a toolkit, like a
I
practical
love that.
lessons learned so that people can take it and use the tips for their situation.
I
So
love it.
actual steps that will help people. Anyway, so I did the timeline of my story. I added the second half with the practical toolkit kind of part of it. And then the part that I really wanted people to know was that there is hope, because I did
Yeah.
remarry. I was blessed with an amazing, godly husband
That's
who treated me
amazing.
right. And we only had 8 years together before he passed away in August. So he was only 41. So
So
for
sorry.
me to, he was one of my biggest cheerleaders for putting the book together,
I love
right?
that. Yeah.
So I had to finish because I was almost done when he passed away. And for me, it's seeing night and day difference between a healthy marriage and
Yes.
an unhealthy marriage. When you
Yes.
feel safe with someone and you can be best friends and you can be partners in life, I want other people to be able to experience that. I don't want them to waste years and years going with
Yes.
someone who they think might come back to being nice to them someday. No,
Right.
because I only had 8 years with my forever person, my person,
Yes.
but I could have had a lot more time with him if
Yes.
I had gotten out of the abusive relationship sooner. So
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing that. And do you talk about that in the
I
book?
do. I did include it in the book because I don't want people to just say, okay, you can get remarried. There are nice
Yeah,
guys out there. It's more than that to me. It's the
exactly.
grief. The grief has taught me how much of a gift real love and real
I
partnership
love
is,
that.
and that people shouldn't give up on hoping for it.
I love that. And that's a great place to end. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And guys, go pick up her book so that you can read all this in greater detail. We don't have all day to talk about. Yes, exactly. She's got her book right there. I have everything in the show notes for you guys to pick up her book and support her for being so vulnerable
Somebody who needs it.
and if exactly. So if this book is not right for you, maybe you're thinking of somebody that it could be right for, please
Yeah.
pick up multiple copies. Pass them out.
Pass
Tell
it
people.
around. Do a church small group study on it if you want to.
Oh my gosh, that is a great idea. Yes, it's a great idea because we do need that information. We need that education. That is for sure, for sure. So
Yeah.
Liberty, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here. I so appreciate it. And so just quickly tell us your website and we'll put everything in the show notes.
Yep. You can visit shinefromyourshadows.com.
Awesome.
Yep. And all
Oh,
the resources are there, and the book is linked there as well.
awesome. So we'll put everything in the show notes. And guys, if anything resonated with you today, please reach out to Liberty and reach out to Podcast Land, Apple, Spotify, wherever you are right now. Leave a review. Tell them you liked us so that we can keep doing this work and we can keep sharing the story. Liberty, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today on the That's Where I'm At podcast. Did the story today resonate with you? Do you think others would benefit from hearing the stories we are telling? Please go to Apple or Spotify right now to leave a review so everyone in podcast land will know you love the show. We want to continue sharing stories of hope and healing. I'll be back next time. I'll talk to you then.